I was looking around my room for some Foley items so I could do like a cocktail shaking noise and make a mixologist and then a College of Spirits joke. But then I thought, man, if I just shake some stuff into my microphone, that's gonna be awful.
Yeah, not the most pleasing ASMR.
That would be awful. That'd be the worst. So I'm not gonna do that.
I think I can do it.
Yeah?
This.
Okay.
No, this.
It sounds like a very quick course.
This sounds awful. This is so terrible.
It's a good idea.
It was a great idea, because you see, the joke is, right, because there's this new Unearthed Arcana subclass part 4, and in it there's a bard who's the College of Spirits, and I was saying spirits as in like alcohol, so like a mixologist joke and cocktails. But what it actually means is spirits as in ghosts.
Spooky.
But yeah, I guess we've started. This is Unearthed ARTcana, and we're going to talk about the new subclasses from the latest of the Unearthed Arcanas. We're talking about the bard. So the College of Spirits, again, because this is from the new spooky Unearthed Arcana, we did the Warlock last week, who is, of course, a cool spooky Warlock. And I think that there have been a couple spooky bards in the past, but this is I think this is the best take on it, at least from an idea point of view. Basically, the idea is you're kind of a medium, as in a spirit medium, and you do your barding through that kind of thing. And already it's probably pretty obvious what I've drawn.
I see.
To a certain extent. As I kind of draw a Kenku. Basically, the idea is you get stories told from ghosts,
yeah, and
then you repeat them. And that's where, like, your bardic stuff is from, is you are literally, like, communicating with spirits and reproducing it. So I thought, I don't know if it specifically works with, like, the Kenku curse thing.
But having them be able to emulate it.
Yeah, so just literally having, like, a Kenku who just speaks in the exact voice, or, like, gets possessed, as it were, in their voice. And doesn't, like, retell stories, but just literally is, like, a megaphone for ghosts to tell.
A conduit.
Yeah, I thought that could be funny.
That's awesome.
I think that's an awesome character.
I think it could also be very fun for the carnival. You know, like there's the Kenku who speaks to the dead, and it's...
yeah, very much so. Ravens, crows, corvids, with an R, are associated with all gothic stuff, which is all spooky stuff as well, so that I thought fitted. Guiding Whispers, you get this at 3rd level, that's when you get your bard thing. Basically, this is a kind of interesting little thing. You get the guidance cantrip, which I believe is usually not paladin. It's a cleric and like paladin one, maybe.
I think it's divine, maybe druid.
Paladins don't really get cantrips, but
that's true. Paladins don't. You're right. Fair point. I should know that. I am also playing one. Anyway, but yeah, you get guidance, and it doesn't count against your bard cantrips that you already know, so that's good. And it gets a range of 60 feet. I believe it's usually a touch spell.
Yeah, it is touch normally.
Okay, basically, getting the spell a range of 60 feet, I think actually makes it. We amongst ourselves have talked occasionally about guidance because it's a weird spell. Basically, you get another D4 on ability checks, I believe, isn't it? Yeah, because it's resistance is the saving throw one. Yeah. So there's always the thing where, like, because it's a cantrip, realistically there should never be a situation in which anyone ever makes a check without having a D4 on it. If there's a person who has guidance,
it's a ludicrous spell,
but it's kind of goofy. I do like the idea of buffing specific cantrips and stuff for subclasses. I don't know, this one could be fun because basically you could give someone your bardic inspiration die as your bonus action and then also guidance them for like a super inspiration essentially, as long as they're making an ability check. In terms of cool things, this is probably the least cool thing about this thing. And if you do have like some house ruling about how guidance works, which I think probably a fair few groups do have, then this kind of might interact weirdly with that.
It's also kind of just a bonus thing for this class, because you would get another 2 things at level 3.
And that's the thing, yeah. So
top loaded, which is good.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you want me to do a spirit?
Do it, man.
So your practice of contracting spirits can employ special tools. So you can use the following objects as a spellcasting focus for your bard spells, such as a candle, a crystal ball,
tarocca.
A tarot.
Yeah, I was like, in my head, I wanted to say tarot, and I was reading it like, that's not how tarot sounds.
Yeah.
Or a skull. At 6th level, when you cast a bard spell, it deals damage or restores hit points through your spiritual focus. You can roll a d6 and you get a bonus to run roll of the spell equal to the number rolled.
Love it.
Pretty cool.
Which is great. Yeah. Just again, another thing. It's got 2 stages to it, and they're both pretty good. It's not too complicated.
Yeah, this is where that like medium flavor comes in where, like, it would be weird for you to use a instrument as your bardic focus for this character. This is definitely not a bard who plays music, unless it's, like, creepy organ music, but then having it, like... Now, I have in the past thought about having a battle organ and, like, it's on robo legs and walking around playing the organ as a bard, but that's that's a lot.
It's out there.
Obviously, it's a tuba.
It's a bit out there. Tuba, that's true. But yeah, this is a bard who I wouldn't necessarily assume plays music. Giving them the tarot deck, Tarocca deck.
Well, I think talking board is more hilarious because they want to say Ouija board like real bad.
I don't want to get sued by Hasbro.
Hasbro International.
But yeah, so that's cool. I think of all bards, this might be the most like theatrical one.
Yeah.
If you catch one, because like bards are already very theatrical class, but like you could really go overboard with doing your candles. That's the other thing, I suppose. Like in terms of focuses, getting hold of a candle, because it doesn't say it has to be a special one, and it's not one that you have to create. Like often when it's a unique catalyst or whatever, it'll be you spend X amount of time making it if it's destroyed or whatever. Whereas this is you need a candle. So if you ever get like your stuff taken off,
10 candles at the start of the game. You just buy them.
Yeah.
Starting equipment.
Or you're in the dungeon. You take one off the wall. You know.
Yeah, you get captured and you haven't got your components, you haven't got your focus, but the guards will have a candle on the table. They might even say, if you say, "Oh, please, can I have a candle to read by?" and then you read a spooky story and bust the door open or whatever, cause knock. So that's a kind of interesting thought.
I quite like the skull, honestly, because of the idea that potentially the upgrades for your character could be getting a more important or heroic skull.
You can have a whole collection. You speak with dead on them, but then also...
Well, that's how maybe the stories come through, is the skull talks.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And people aren't sure if you're, like, doing a ventriloquist.
You're a ventriloquist, 100%, yeah. 100% you're a ventriloquist. And just to say, rolling a d6 to add to those numbers is bonkers.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's not limited even, like, to, like, once per turn or anything.
Yeah, so it deals damage or restores hit points.
So
which basically... Those are the two things you do. I guess bards do have a lot of like
saves. Yeah, that's true.
Save spells, and they
your vicious mockery though does a.
That's the thing. Yeah, it's
D4 plus D6.
Yeah. It becomes more of a damage dealing thing, which you wouldn't necessarily expect, but it's not making it super good. It's just making it.
Oh, it's very good.
It's very good, but it's not insane.
Like Cure Wounds by default is 1d8 plus 1d6.
That is the thing. It does make it probably the best healing bard, just because getting another dice on top of like a healing word or on a Cure Wounds is awesome.
Yeah, compare it to Alchemist that we talked about recently, which is like plus modifier.
Oh yeah.
Or proficiency, I don't remember, one of the two. So it's like if that's like guaranteed like 3 kind of minimum, and this averages out about 4.
Sure.
But sometimes you do roll lower, sometimes you roll higher. It's a bit of randomness there, which is always fun.
It's definitely a strong thing. That alone, I'll say this already, this is probably my second favourite bard after the last bard we talked about, which was the Elements bard, which I enjoyed heavily. But this is definitely, that's a very good, very strong ability. And I can imagine that being something, if this ever gets to, a released state, something that might get changed or like limited to a certain number of times, like tied to proficiency bonus or whatever, or charisma. I could see that happening potentially.
Should I talk about Tales from Beyond?
Yeah. Now,
regale us with a tale.
Don't worry.
Okay, good.
So, Tales from Beyond is probably why I think this jumps to one of my favourite bards as well.
Yeah.
Because of you can spend a use of your bardic inspiration as a bonus action. And then you can roll on a random table to get a tale basically told to you.
Yeah.
And you keep that tale in your mind. It lasts until you finish a short or long rest.
Yeah, you can remember it for that long.
You can remember it for that long. You can use an action to choose a creature within 30 feet of you to be the target of the effect. And once you do so, you can't bestow it until you roll again, blah, blah, blah. You retain only one of these tales in your mind at a time. And rolling the spirit's table immediately ends the effect of the previous tale. Basically what this comes down to is there's a table of, I believe, 12 things.
It's a full page long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it has little kind of descriptors, like just randomly, like, I don't know, number 4, runaway, you tell the tale of an adventurer that could escape any confinement. and you gain a reaction to teleport 30 feet to an occupied space, an ability. And you can bestow those on your friends, and it's this... I think it can really change a lot of dynamics, because some of these are pretty strong.
Definitely, yeah. Again, there are 12 of them, and they are quite long, and they all have very different things, and we could talk for like for 10 minutes on each of them, and that's too much. The link to this PDF is in the description. Worth checking out, all this list. It's cool, but there's a lot.
So yeah, it's a bonus action to get a tail, and then an action to spend a tail.
I really like that, because what it means is you get it, and then if it's not what you needed in what you were hoping for in that situation, it's not like you have to use your action to use it, and it's wasted. It means like, okay, that's not what I wanted immediately, but I'll have this in the bank for like later, and I can either try and roll again next turn, or I can use it now if it's like this will still work. So I like that. That works out quite nicely.
So there is a class in Final Fantasy XIV called the Astra Legion, who has a tarot deck, and they draw cards and keep them and can spend them on party members to give them bonuses.
Okay.
And it's kind of a very similar-ish effect.
Sure.
And it's a very cool dynamic of being able to store an effect, because it's not until short rest, so you could like walk out of town, you wake up in the morning, and you can roll and be like, okay, well, I know the story of the giant today, or the friend, and then you can keep that, or you could technically spend more bardic inspiration to try and get a better one, or in a situation when it comes around, now you're in combat and you're like, oh geez, I really need a better one than this.
And after, I think it's 6th level something, when you do get your bardic inspiration back on a short rest. Again, you don't get it immediately, but you get it back pretty quick anyway. So you will have a reasonable amount of them. I guess this is it's kind of like with that previous Eloquence bard, the bardic inspiration die was so good as a bardic inspiration die, and this is trying to make this is going to be probably the primary thing that you want to be using your inspiration to do, because it's your whole class's thing. And it's pretty strong. It's just random, which is obviously not always...
It may feel bad sometimes. It may totally feel bad. Like being in a combat against something that's uncharmable and getting one of these charm effects.
Sure, yeah.
And then you'll be like, well, I'll save this.
Yeah, that is true. And there's something I found kind of interesting about it. I didn't really realise this the first time. I'm not sure I'm right, but I think the way it's worded is because it's a D12 table, but you roll your inspiration die, which isn't a D12 at the start. So the ones later on the table you only unlock later on. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
When I first read it, I only realised that when I was reading it just before we started. I was like, so there's a couple later ones which are kind of crazy. So like, for just a quick example, number 12 is unknown. You utter an incomprehensible fable from a being beyond the stars. If you did that at level 3, that might be a bit like much.
What?
But by the time you got like a D12 on your bardic inspiration die, you are a sort of getting on for a demigod. So having a spirit communication from something incomprehensible and from beyond the stars, it makes more sense. I think that's at least I'm pretty sure that's how this is meant to work, right? Like,
I would see that completely, 100%, and that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a cool thing. And then like because the high on the chart ones are things like giants and celestials and dragons, and the things at the bottom are beasts, warrior, and friends and stuff. So it has a little scaling thing to it, which I think is quite cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't even good spot.
Yeah, and I think it could be very fun for a DM who this is coming along to maybe invent the little stories. I was thinking that as well. Like with the player or whatever, you can maybe, instead of each of these being a face of stories, maybe you name each of these guys as, a character or hero or something.
Sure, yeah.
And then, your bard can embellish whatever he wants on their tale, but it's like, I shall tell you today another tale of Branad the hero. That kind of thing.
You guys have been playing in the campaign I've been running for a little bit, and then I have you may have noticed I've written down a fair few random story things which aren't necessarily very important at the moment, but if someone were to be playing this class, I would absolutely make each thing be something pertaining to the world, and maybe not immediately obviously useful, but have clues and things that are going to be coming along later to be set up early, and it's a great exposition class. If you wanna like say, if you wanna have a tale about how this hero died and lost his big axe on this mountain, and then that's like, oh, it's a neat story, and then
you discover that mountain exists.
We found where this mountain is. Oh wow, okay. And these aren't just stories; these are things that are being told to you from beyond the grave by.
Happens.
And you could even go into having like trying to fulfill unfinished like stories for ghosts, as it were. Because when we talked about ghosts back in Chandra's, because obviously ghosts have that thing where they have the unfinished business, and if you can do it, then they can pass on peacefully. And so this could be a cool way to even get like a quest, as it were. So lots of potential in this ability, and even if you don't use that for anything more complicated than it is, if you have someone who's playing a bard who likes to make stuff up and talk, then this is a great opportunity. And they might want a good one for someone who wants to do some creative writing. If the DM is not going to make up stories, it's something that the player could do.
Yeah, it could be really fun. I just thought about with this class, which kind of feels a little weird. Imagine if you picked the talking board, the Ouija board. How do you sway that this happened in like 6 seconds?
In combat, 6 seconds. Oh, yes,
just
very
he's very quickly moving it.
You fall prone, you slam the ground.
It's so anime. Just.
Yeah,
it's a fair point. I guess I'll talk about the 6th level spirit session. We talked about in spiritual focus. Yeah, you get the bonus d6 to anything that damages or heals, but you also get spirit session, which is basically you can conduct a ritual channeling spirits, which you can do in a short or long rest. So that's nice, and you have to use a spiritual focus for this. And you conduct the ritual with a number of creatures equal to your proficiency bonus, which includes yourself. And at the end of the ritual, you get a spell of your choice from you get a spell of your choice from any other class. So obviously this already ties in with what the bard kind of gets anyway with the
magical secrets.
Magical secrets.
But there is more caveats.
Yeah. I was just saying. But yes, the spell that you get after doing your ritual, it's got to be of a level equal to the number of creatures that conducted the ritual or less, which is great. And it's got to be of a level you can cast, obviously. I will say it's kind of lame that it's got to be of the school of divination or necromancy. That anytime I see that as a line in a class, it's like... Yeah. For one thing, it hurts because it's just reducing like scope of a thing, and that's annoying. And the other reason it hurts is when you're looking up the list of spells like in the book, you don't know what it is until you've gone and found it in the page. So you can see... Oh, that's a cool sounding spell. I'm going to look it up. Oh, it's not one of these ones. Oh, it is a cool spell. Oh, well. I like this ability. Again, it's kind of like that thing with the... I think Arcane Trickster has that thing as well, where it can only have spells from these certain things, and a lot of that, which is kind of annoying. But I just love the idea of having a seance as this bard. And obviously, it's I like that it has that proficiency... bonus kind of limit built in, so that increases over time. It does mean that if you have a small party of like 3 people, when you get to higher level, you're going to have to get some random people, hirelings, just to do seances with, but that could be quite fun. Yeah. And you're probably, at high level, you probably will have some people hanging around. It tends to be the way I feel, but maybe not in every game. And in fact, you'll notice this thing that I've drawn has a necklace of hands touching the fingertips and such, which is what you do in a seance. You put your hands on a table in a ring with the thumb touching.
You do.
I wanted this guy to have some sort of hand motif with his clothes.
His name is a handy design.
His name is Mano.
The name of the file is Kenku is a Bird Brunel is the name of the file.
Nice.
Because I love a great joke. Spirit Session. I think this is fun. It's cool.
It's quite weak.
It's not great. It's not strong. But having another spell is good because Bard doesn't get loads and loads of spells.
Spell list. Well, lots to choose from.
Lots to choose from, but you only get
ups.
Exactly. Yes. So
realistically, like, what's it going to be used for? It's going to be used for getting a divination-y, like an augury or a detect evils kind of spell, Or maybe necromancy. I think the resurrection spells are technically necromancy.
Yes, they are. So you could get a hold of like a revivify.
Yeah, and kind of doing that in a seance, bringing somebody's spirit back to their body and then casting the spell through this.
Yeah.
That's
really
kind
cool.
of fun.
It's not super strong, but I think it works very well for this class, and it fits in with the other bard stuff. Like it's not introducing a whole new thing for it, which is fair enough.
And unlike a lot of the bad subclasses, you get something else at 6 as well. The earlier spiritual focus thing you get a numerical bonus, and then you get the let's see what you can do with this bonus.
Yeah. Because that's the thing, because the other thing is just a straight up buff, which feels kind of odd because this guy's not like this isn't like the ultimate magic powerhouse bard. So why is he doing more damage and more healing than every other bard? But also this is not a particularly spectacular thing, but it's interesting. And I think again, if you're playing this bard, you're probably playing it because it's interesting, not because it's any class that has a big ass random table as its core thing is not being played because it's like the meta thing to do. So I think that's fair enough.
I would completely agree with you, except for that D6 being very fun.
Well, that's the thing. The D6 is good. But yeah,
Sam, the last bit.
14.
Mystical Connection.
So good.
Which is so essentially, whenever you use your Tales from Beyond feature, which why would you not be using it, you can use a D6 instead of expending a Bardic Inspiration die. Which is really, really good, because it basically means you can constantly use kind of the introductory tales, if you want to call them that, but you're having from the first few levels. They would still use your Bardic Inspiration die for their effects, so like Friends gives healing, so you're not like nerfing your healing, you feel like doing this when you've got it, so you have like a D12, you still do D12 healing and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's really good. It means you can just do it all the time. It's a
I guess
that lets you do your class thing more.
Cool. Again, 14th level is pretty high.
Same level as like the Capstone, Warlock and stuff.
Bard's Capstone stuff's never really amazing anyway.
That one's... I love that one.
This one is... that's what I'm saying. I think this one's really good.
It's definitely better than most... And what it also means is that, in theory, you would be happier to like re-roll a story if you wanted a specific one. Although, obviously, you'd have to do that like on your next turn. And at that point, combat in D&D doesn't, in 5th at least, doesn't tend to go more than 4-5 rounds or whatever. So you might be a bit of waste of time, but being able to use your thing without having to worry about not being able to do your other thing, because of course Bard's main thing is meant to be inspiration.
Yeah,
that's always the kind of the problem I feel with a lot of the like unique uses for Bardic Inspiration that the classes get, because it's like, they are. This is a cool thing, but also I've used my like 3 or 4 inspirations, and those are more useful.
I think there's also like there's like the meme that like Bardic Inspiration is kind of useless. Like you do it and people forget they have it, or it doesn't help, or they just roll. You give them a Bardic Inspiration and they just roll like a 19 anyway. I think giving Bards something different. To use it on, which is like guaranteed to have enough to be used and work, and really good.
Realistically, in like a combat scenario, you give inspiration to the fighter, because the wizard, he's got 50-50 shot of either using it because he might be doing saves or he might be doing...
It'll be concentration, most likely. And maybe you would give... That's the only real reason I would see to give inspiration to like a wizard, is if they're concentrating on something really important and you're like, hey, we're going to give you that just in case.
Yeah, which is a cool use. And
definitely.
It's a good mechanic, but like it can be very limiting. And this one's cool because you can use them for other things while also rolling on your core table. Yeah. And remember, in downtime, you could just roll endlessly those D6s.
You could basically, at the start of the adventure day, you can just choose the one that you are going to want, the one that's going to always be useful, whatever you feel that's
keep doing it, so you can just always heal. We wouldn't have to
in a short rest, you can just keep rolling to get 3s.
Like trying to find the right ghost. No, not that one. I'm trying to find the friend ghost.
You can actually go through the tarot deck. Nope.
No. And at this point as well, you have such a... You've been chatting with these ghosts for so long, it does become mundane. So you are just like going through all these low-level...
I don't want to talk to you, unknown eldritch horror.
Leave me be. I'm trying to find Runaway. which I think is very funny. But yeah, the Eloquence Bard was all about making the Bardic Inspiration die its own like very powerful thing, whereas this one is at 14th level. It's letting you do your thing. Obviously, if you want to get those really really cool ones like the dragon, where you can have a dragon breath attack, which is awesome. You're gonna have to use your inspiration, but if you just want to, be doing it as a support thing, then that's gonna be happening and being useful. And again, you're only gonna have like 5 uses of your die, of your Bardic Inspiration die. So this would be a good way to still have use your bonus action for something. Feel like you're doing your Bard stuff without worrying about blowing through your resources real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Cool Bard. Again, Bard only get the 3 different levels of things, don't they? Yeah. I've had this idea for a thing on a way for a magical person to have their clothes fasten, which is to have the little magic hands that when you bring them close together, they like shake hands. And I was thinking I've not done it yet because I haven't thought of like a cool enough thing to put it on. I thought it would make sense on this guy. So if you ever see something in like my campaign, if you see a guy who's got a coat where the buttons are holding hands, then you know I think he's cool. Because I gave him that.
Kill him instantly.
Exactly. Got it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Very Crypt Keeper-esque. I like it.
Sure.
I think that there's sometimes when you get a class which is like numbers.
Yeah.
You get like, I am a numbers subclass, like, I don't know, Frenzy Barbarian or whatever,
Or like the Evocation Wizard.
Yeah, it's like I do numbers and that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And I think this one is a very interesting balance of it because of it's... What it really is with it is you get a numerical bonus at 1 level and then you get the random table, which, if we're honest, is like a random 1st level spell.
Yeah, but basically, none of them are especially crazy. Even the stronger ones are not mad.
Yeah,
no.
There may be like a
cool.
2nd level spell.
Yeah.
Which is like cool because again, you draw them as an action. You get to decide when, extra resources, and resetting on short rest. And it's just kind of like, okay, I can have some fun rolling and getting creative, but then I can also be rest assured that my character's also kind of backed up with I can't. I'm a bit better.
Yeah,
and it flavours itself really well with the spellcasting focus stuff.
And there's a thing that the thing I really like about Bard, the way that they get their spells, you only have a certain number of spells strictly. You can't like memorize from a big list every time you take a long rest, so you have the ones you're stuck with. So what this table kind of means is it's obviously not consistent, but you can kind of pick your spells differently because like in theory I can support damage by rolling on this and getting one of the things that does extra damage, so I don't necessarily need to take, like a lower level fighting spell, and you can focus on having things like the counter spells and the out of combat things and whatnot.
Or I can just save my spell slots.
Exactly, that as well.
And try and get an effect.
Especially at 14th level. Especially at 14th level, if you're fighting like a bunch of minions on the way into something, you could just decide I'm just going to roll on my table for this entire fight. I'm not going to use a single spell slot. I don't want to. I don't need to because I have this, and this is fun. Now, admittedly, it could slow the game down a lot if you're very dramatic and like to tell the whole thing every time. But I think by the time you get to 14th level, you probably have streamlined it a fair amount, I should think.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I think it's true for all of these, but this would be a good NPC kind of thing as well. Even just using this table as inspiration for what a guy might do. Yeah, that's true too. And the spirit session thing, I think, in theory, could be very cool to maybe if you have if you've got a caster who's we need this thing to beat this particular guy. We need counterspell, and none of us have a way of getting it. And then you could do a seance with this weird, creepy, carnival medium, and he'll get you the thing you need for a day with the spooky ritual, and then you got to go off and make the best out of it. That could be interesting.
Or it's because it's divination. You could theoretically, if you have an NPC, you ask him a question, and to cast his divination spell, he has a seance with you that then casts this spell. So, he doesn't actually know it. He just uses the seance to get the spell.
He has to go get it. Yeah, it could be cool. again, there's a lot to this class, and that table, there's too much to go through. I do recommend looking it up. And these 2 classes from this part 4 have been pretty cool. 2 spooky ones. Two spooky ones.
I'm terrified right now.
I want a fun one. I want a happy subclass next. I want one that's not scary.
I think this guy could be happy.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
I got friends on the other side,
Oh, you could go very jazz, voodoo, New Orleans kind of thing.
Guam Sandy. I just had another thought about this one, actually, which is we play in Roll20, right? Or in real life.
Yes.
And in real life you could technically do something like this. But this could be a really fun subclass to, if you go for like the tarot element, making each of these cards.
Yeah, that could be very cool.
And actually having a deck for the D12, you shuffle it, draw the top one.
That'd be really cool, actually. Because then, like, you could add the cards in as you level up, as it were. Like,
exactly, yeah.
As well. Because you don't have to make the first 6.
And in Roll20 you can make custom decks, and...
Yeah, you can, can't you? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you can make custom decks, and in real life you can get cards off the...
Any excuse to have a cool prop playing in real life is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you ever have the deck of many things in a real life and then using a real deck of cards is cool for that.
Whenever that came up in Crit Roll Season 1 and you see Matt go to his bag to get his deck out.
Nice.
That was always good.
But yeah, I guess that's the end. It's a cool one. Go play it. Come back next time. There's an Unearthed Arcana. There's also other great videos on this channel that I'm not even going to list them because they're all great. Just check them out at your leisure, I suppose.
My favourite one is the one in the recommended.
You know what? There's a reason it's recommended, and it's because it's the best one.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh God, we're going to get something horrific in the recommended now.
Yeah, it's going to be something awful.
It's going to be it's the best video. Anyhow, right, I'm going to say good night. Thanks very much for watching.
Thanks, guys.
Good night. And, sweet dreams. Don't get spooked by the spooky bard. Woo.